Hello everyone, welcome to another video in the series of Semantic Kernel, and in this video I will explain you how can you create a basic chat experience wherein we will be saving our chat history in memory. So everything is local, we are not doing anything outside our Jupyter notebook. So whatever we are chatting, it is still written in that one particular session of the Jupyter notebook. So let's get started. So we need to write like a little bit longer code this time. So the very first thing you need to do is you need to install the Semantic Kernel version 096p1, and once this is installed, the next thing is we need to import the Semantic Kernel, which I'm doing it here, and then I'm reading my configuration values. So now for reading the configuration like API keys, model, whatever the secrets you want, so all those things, there are various ways to do it, but I just prefer this one wherein I have created a configuration.env file and I'm pushing everything in this file in a like key value format. So once this is defined, I'm instantiating the kernel and just assigning some service ID which could be any string. Then second thing we need to do is we need to create the settings for our LLM. So you can use Azure OpenAI, or even Hugging Face. So here I am going with Azure Chat Completion. So here you can see the object I'm creating is having all the properties which are related to Azure OpenAI. So deployment, endpoint, and the API key. So endpoint and API key is very specific to Azure OpenAI. So by looking at this code, you can see that I'm using Azure OpenAI's chat completion. But if you want to go with the OpenAI, then you can simply use another class which is OpenAI chat completion, and accordingly you need to remove these two parameters from here. And the second thing we need is the execution settings. So whenever we are making a call to LLM, we need to pass certain settings, whether it is our temperature, max number of tokens, or whether the penalty parameter, the stop sequence. So all those things we need to pass it under this execution settings. So here, like I said, I'm using Azure OpenAI, so this is my class. But when you are using OpenAI, then you would have another class which is OpenAI chat prompt execution settings. So these are the only two things which you need to change. Apart from this, rest all the code will work as it is for both Azure OpenAI and OpenAI. So once we have this configuration defined for our execution settings and the model, next thing we need to do is to define the prompt. So here we are defining the prompt in the form of a template because we need to maintain the history between what user is saying and what response we are getting from our bot. So for that, this is the simple prompt I am taking. So you can extend it based on your need. You can add more rules if you have, like do not get me answers from outside, or do not make any answers if you don't know. So all these things you can get those added here. So this is a simple prompt, and you can see how I'm maintaining the history and the user input. So let's run this as well. Then next thing is, like, we are using this kind of thing which is like a templating part. So definitely we need to create a prompt template configuration in which we will define what is our prompt template, what kind of format we are using, and what are the input variables we are having. So like we are maintaining the history in memory, so here we will be having two different type of input variables. The very first one is the input, which is the string which we are getting from the user, and the second one is the history. So history is what we are talking, or what is happening between both the parties, the user and the AI. So once these two are defined, and make sure that you are defining it as required as true, because we don't want to lose the history in between. So it is always good to just push it as a true for both of these things. And next thing is we are associating the execution settings with our prompt template. So let's run this as well. Next thing is for maintaining the chat history, they have a implementation from the Semantic Kernel content. So you just need to import the chat history because we are going to instantiate this. We are going to use this class. So if you will hover over this, you will get to know that this class holds the history of chat messages from the chat conversation going between both the parties. So what it is doing here is, here we need to construct the function and pass it on to the kernel. So we are saying that we have this particular function chat helper, which I have defined later. I will show you in a second. And then you need to just give some unique name to this plugin, because we are going to call some external function, and whenever we are talking with external API or function, it is all plugins. So here I'm defining this, and then I'm associating my configuration template as well. So once this function is defined, I will quickly tell you what we are doing it over here. So what this chat helper is doing is, it is just taking the user input and adding it to the chat history, invoking our function, and whatever the response we are getting, it is just appending it back as an assistant message. So the only thing it is doing is, it is just clubbing the messages from both the sides, whether it is a user or it is from the bot side. So that's what this function is doing, and it is the same function which I have added as a kernel function. Okay. Now next thing is to construct the kernel arguments. So for kernel arguments, like I said, there are two arguments here. Input variable, you can see here two, input and the history. So here also we need to pass these two parameters. The very first one is user input. So here user will be asking a question, and history is the chat history variable which we just constructed by instantiating our chat history in just above cell. So now the question I'm asking is, can you tell me a one-liner riddle on a fruit without telling it answer? And here I'm invoking this particular thing, and whatever the response I'm getting, I'm just adding it back to the assistant. So let's run this cell. And this is the question. This: I'm always hungry. I must always be fed. The finger I touch will soon turn red. So I hope you might have guessed the answer. So now what I'm saying is, if let's say if it is maintaining the history, then it should be able to tell me the answer of the previous riddle which was mentioned, right? So I'm saying, that was funny. Can you tell me the correct answer of the riddle you just mentioned? So let's run it, and the answer here is a fire. Okay, now let me try another question. So tell me another one-liner riddle on an animal without telling its answer. So here is the one. I'm an animal with a long neck and spots. Who am I? So let's see. Can you tell me the answer of the riddle you just mentioned? So it should give me the answer of this one rather than whatever I have asked earlier. So answer is the giraffe, which was like very straightforward. So this is how it is maintaining the history. And like I said, the history is maintained in memory. So you should not expect anything to be retained once this session is closed. And again, it completely depends on how much RAM you are having, how much capacity your machine is having. So accordingly, you can keep going this chatting. So that's all I have for today. And the important thing which you must have noticed is here I'm just calling my chat helper function. I'm not invoking using this particular line, kernel.invoke, because now we have chat helper which is going to take care of everything. And inside of chat helper, we are anyways invoking the chat function. So we need not to call the kernel.invoke explicitly over here. So I hope you got an idea, and this is just a basic chat experience, but if you are looking for something to retain it for next use, then just stay tuned for my next video. And in my next video, I will explain you how can you persist this particular chat history for your further use. Thanks for watching.